Well, I am thrilled to be joined by Joe Travers on the show today. Joe Travers, the Vaultmeister of the Zappa Trust, fabulous musician, toured with so many people, including Mike Keneally. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. We have so much to talk about.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Brian. Thanks so much for letting me come on and chat with you.
Would you tell my audience what your job is as the archivist, as the Vaultmeister for the Zappa Trust?
Yes. Well, I started in 1995 doing the archiving and the digital preservation of the assets in Frank Zappa's vast vault. And it's been, 28 years or so now. And it's been an unbelievable experience. For the longest time, I worked, right next to Gail, doing all these projects. And now Amit and I are together as a joint production team, just pumping out release after release.
You mentioned the vast archive of Frank Zappa. Can you give us a little sense of what that really means? And I've been lucky enough to see the old archive, the former location in the Hollywood Hills, and it truly was vast. But can you give me a sense of what that really means, how big it was?
Yeah, of course. Well, Frank was recording as much as he possibly could for the longest time. I mean, I think he started in the 50s. The thing about Frank is that because of the timing of his career, I mean, literally, he's like a pioneer with all the different formats. So when you go in the vault, there's like every format that you can frigging think of is in there. And it's such a trip because you have to have the machines to try and play all that back. But also his scores and his music and pictures and articles and slides, master slides, and all the album art, the original album art from all the releases. I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
I want to ask you about a couple of these releases. One of the most recent releases was the Mother's 1970 release. Could you tell me about that?
Yes. Well, every year we have a production meeting, and we always talk about what are we going to do for future projects, the upcoming future projects for the following year or whatever. And one of the things that we always take in account is what are the significant anniversaries in Frank's career, for that particular year. And so when we were talking about the stuff that we were going to do for 2020, well, what were the significant, things that happened in Frank's career? So for 1970, what happened in 1970? Well, a lot of stuff did, but significantly, the formation of the Flo and Eddie Mothers was kind of a big deal. In the vault, there really wasn't a lot of stuff in there that significantly represents that band. Frank did release things, but not that much live stuff from that band. It was the following year, 1971, that it got a lot of attention because there was more opportunities for that band to be recorded professionally, like multi-track, multi-track live recordings and stuff like that.
Sure.
In 1970, that didn't happen that much at all. So when we talked about, well, can we do an anniversary release on the formation of that band? It's like, well, what do I have to choose from? And I knew that there was a lot of just kind of like stereo recordings that weren't really unbelievable, but stuff that Frank was recording on his own. And even though the sound quality of that stuff isn't unbelievable, historically, it's a really fun listen. And so I tried to gather up as much as I possibly could from that band, which lasted 8 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And see if we could put together something that would be an enjoyable listen. And so thankfully we have these really great studio recordings that happened at Trident Studios in London, all of which nobody has ever heard before except for one song. So that was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff here. And then you implement some live material from that time period, and there you go. That's how that came together. And it's doing really well. People are very excited about it because it's such a rare time period,
Sure. Well, what's interesting, I want to point out for people who aren't closely aware of the arc of Frank Zappa's career, I wanted to point out this idea of the different kinds of bands that he assembled and what vocalists meant in those bands. When you look at later in his career in the later 70s into the 80s, and you had him working with Ray White and Ike Willis, and then you look at the more earlier Mother's work where it's really his 60s sound, right? And that 1970, this switch to working with Flo and Eddie, and then what comes out of that band heading towards his album, like One Size Fits All down the road. And this is beginning a very interesting period for you, looking back at these 50th anniversaries. There's a lot of incredible, really groundbreaking music that's about to start hitting these anniversaries. So you're really in the catbird seat here. You know, you got some good stuff.
Yeah.
Joe Travers, thank you for joining me. It's always great talking to you. Joe, thank you, man. Be well.
Thank you.